It started with a simple request. The White House staff received a letter from a young Navy captain, Emma Caldwell, requesting a meeting with President Donald Trump. It was unusual. Requests like these typically came from high-ranking officials, but Emma wasn't a general or an admiral. She was a 28-year-old captain, one of the youngest in the Navy's history. The letter itself was brief but compelling. Mr. President, I have something important to discuss, not for my sake, but for those who serve in silence. When the letter reached Trump's desk, he raised an eyebrow. He had met many military leaders, but a captain of her age standing out enough to request a meeting, that was rare. Let's hear what she has to say, he finally said. Within hours, arrangements were made. The country didn't know it yet, but this meeting would ignite a conversation that would spread far beyond the walls of the White House. And for Emma, this was more than just a meeting. It was a mission. As Emma stepped off the military jet that brought her to Washington, she felt the weight of unseen eyes on her. News had leaked that a young Navy captain was meeting the president, and speculation ran wild. Was she being honored? Had she uncovered a scandal? Social media was ablaze with theories. Some praised her as an inspiration. A young female Navy captain? That's the leadership we need. One tweet read. Others were more skeptical. She's probably just a PR stunt for the White House, another person commented. Emma ignored the noise. She had dealt with doubters her whole life. When she joined the Navy at 18, when she became an officer at 22, and when she took command at 26. Now she had a chance to speak, not just for herself, but for those who had sacrificed far more. As she neared the White House gates, she took a deep breath. This wasn't about politics. It was about truth, and she was ready to tell it. The moment Emma walked into the Oval Office, she felt history surround her. The room was both imposing and strangely warm, filled with portraits of past leaders and the faint scent of polished wood. Donald Trump stood near his desk, hands in his pockets, watching her with curiosity. Captain Caldwell, he greeted her. I've met generals, admirals, but a 28-year-old captain? That's something you don't see every day. Emma met his gaze, standing at attention. Mr. President, thank you for meeting with me. He gestured for her to sit. Your letter got my attention. You said this wasn't for you, but for those who serve in silence. Tell me what that means. Emma didn't hesitate. It means that behind every medal, every mission, there's a cost that no one sees. And sometimes leadership isn't about the victories, it's about surviving the failures. Trump leaned forward, intrigued. Go on. Emma took a deep breath. She had come here to tell the truth, and she wasn't holding back. Emma's voice was steady, but her heart pounded. Mr. President, the country loves to talk about leadership. They celebrate the wins, the promotions, the glory, but they don't talk about the nights leaders lie awake, replaying the decisions that cost lives. Trump's expression hardened. He had met many soldiers, but few spoke like this. You're talking about sacrifice. Not just any sacrifice, Emma clarified. The kind that stays with you. The kind that haunts you. Trump nodded. Tell me, what's the hardest sacrifice you've made? Emma clenched her fists. This was the moment she had been building up to. 3 years ago, I made a call in the field. It was supposed to be a routine mission, but it went sideways. My best friend, Lieutenant Jake Carter, trusted my decision, and he died because of it. The room fell silent. Trump finally spoke. And you still carry it? Every day, she admitted, because leadership isn't about making the right choices. It's about carrying the weight of the wrong ones. Trump studied her carefully, nodding slowly. I understand that. And Emma wasn't sure if he really did. She had seen firsthand what it meant to lose someone under her command, to feel the crushing responsibility of a life lost. But then Trump leaned back in his chair, his tone more reflective than she had ever heard him. You know, he bound, when you're president, every decision affects millions. People love you, people hate you. You try to do the right thing, but no matter what, someone pays the price. He shook his head. And sometimes you never know if you made the right call. Emma hadn't expected this level of honesty. Then why do it? Trump smiled faintly. Same reason you do, Captain. Because if you don't, someone else will. And you'd rather be the one carrying that weight than let someone else bear it. Emma exhaled slowly. Maybe, just maybe, he did understand. And that made this conversation even more important. Emma's voice was quieter now. I remember the last thing Jake said to me before our mission. He smiled and said, if this goes south, don't you dare carry me like a ghost. But that's exactly what I've done. Trump folded his hands together. You were his leader. That's a burden you'll always feel. But tell me, what would he say if he saw you here right now? Emma blinked. The thought had never occurred to her. He'd probably roll his eyes and say, "Why are you wasting time talking to the president when you could be making a difference?" Trump chuckled. "Sounds like a good man." "He was," she agreed. "And that's why I'm here, because leadership isn't about titles or power. It's about standing for those who can't." Trump nodded slowly. "Then let's make sure they hear you." Emma frowned. "What do you mean?" Trump leaned forward. "You came here with something to say. Now I want you to say it to the nation." Outside the White House, the media was in a frenzy. News outlets speculated on why Emma had met with Trump. Some claimed she was being considered for a promotion. Others suspected a political agenda. Who is Captain Emma Caldwell? And why is she meeting with the president? One headline blared. Emma ignored it all. She had come to speak the truth, and now Trump had given her a bigger platform than she ever expected. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. Trump shrugged. "You wanted to speak for those who serve in silence. Here's your chance." That night, as she lay in her hotel room, Emma replayed Jake's words in her mind. "If you ever get a chance to speak up for those who can't, do it." She picked up her phone and texted the White House liaison. "Tell the president I'll do it." And just like that, her mission had grown into something far bigger than she had ever imagined. The next morning, Emma stood in front of a mirror, adjusting her uniform. Today wasn't a battle, but it felt like one. She arrived at the White House briefing room where Trump was waiting. He smirked. "Nervous?" "A little," she admitted. "Good," he said. "That means it matters." Emma took a deep breath. "What exactly do you want me to say?" Trump leaned against the podium. "I want you to say what you told me. I want America to hear the truth about sacrifice, about leadership, about what it really means to wear that uniform." Emma hesitated. "People will judge me. Some will say I'm not experienced enough to speak for others." Trump's expression turned serious. "Captain, people are going to talk no matter what you do. The question is, are you going to let them decide who you are, or are you going to tell them yourself?" That was all Emma needed to hear. She squared her shoulders. "Let's do this." The White House press room was packed. Reporters whispered, cameras clicked, and millions of Americans tuned in. No one quite knew what to expect. Emma stepped to the podium, her uniform crisp, her posture strong. She wasn't a politician. She wasn't a celebrity. She was just a soldier. She took a deep breath and spoke. "America loves its heroes. We celebrate those who succeed, who come home draped in medals. But we don't talk enough about the ones who don't make it back, or the ones who do but leave pieces of themselves behind." The room was silent. She continued. "I wear this uniform with pride, but leadership isn't just about rank. It's about responsibility. 3 years ago, I made a decision that cost a man his life, and every day since I've carried that weight, because that's what real leadership is. It's standing tall even when it hurts." Across the country, people listened. And for the first time in a long time, many saw the military in a different light. The impact of Emma's words spread fast. Social media exploded. Finally, someone is telling the truth about leadership. "I lost my brother in combat. This speech means everything to me." Even veterans who rarely spoke publicly chimed in. One tweet from a retired Marine simply said, "She gets it." But not everyone was supportive. Critics accused her of being a pawn for the administration. What does a 28-year-old know about real sacrifice? One news anchor questioned. Emma ignored the noise. She hadn't spoken to win approval. She had spoken for Jake. That night, she received a letter from a Vietnam veteran. "For years, we fought in silence. We buried our brothers without a voice. Thank you for reminding America what we sacrificed for." Emma read it twice, then folded it carefully. Maybe, just maybe, she was making a difference. The country was divided. Some called Emma a hero. Others claimed she was unqualified to speak on military issues. Political commentators argued over her words. One news show debated, is Captain Caldwell the voice our military needs, or is she overstepping? Emma wasn't interested in debates. She had only one goal, to make sure no soldier ever felt alone in their struggles. Trump called her that evening. "Well, Captain, looks like you've got people talking." Emma sighed. "I didn't mean to cause controversy," Trump laughed. "The truth always does. But controversy isn't the enemy, silence is." That stuck with her. For too long, soldiers had suffered in silence, carrying burdens no one saw. Maybe it was time for that to change. Days later, another letter arrived. This one from a 98-year-old Navy veteran named Margaret Reynolds. Captain Caldwell, I was 23 when I served in World War II. Back then, women didn't have a voice in the military. We just did our job and hoped history wouldn't forget us. Emma swallowed hard as she continued reading. You stood up and spoke for all of us who never had a chance. And for that, I thank you. Emma stared at the letter, overwhelmed. Jake had told her to speak up for those who couldn't, and now it seemed she was doing exactly that. Trump held a press conference the next day. Reporters fired questions at him about Emma's speech. Mr. President, was this planned as a political move? Trump smirked. Nope. Captain Caldwell isn't a politician. She's a soldier. She spoke the truth. If that makes some people uncomfortable, maybe they should ask themselves why. Reporters scrambled to react. Emma watched the broadcast from her hotel room. She hadn't expected the president to defend her so directly, but she wasn't backing down now. She had more to say. The next morning, Emma met with military advocacy groups. If this conversation had started a fire, she wanted to make sure it burned for something bigger. She sat with veterans who struggled with PTSD, families who had lost loved ones, and active duty soldiers afraid to speak out. People listen to you, a young Marine told her. Now use that voice for something real. Emma nodded. She wasn't done yet. She reached out to organizations focused on mental health and veteran support. With Trump's quiet backing, funding was secured for new programs. The mission had begun. Weeks later, Emma's speech was still being discussed. College students analyzed it in leadership classes. Military officers referenced it in briefings. Some called it a defining moment in military discussions. Others dismissed it as a fleeting headline. Emma didn't care about fame. She cared that soldiers, both young and old, finally felt seen. And that was worth more than any headline. Not everyone was happy. A former general went on television and said, "Leadership is about action, not words. We don't need speeches. We need strategy." Emma listened to the broadcast and sighed. "They think I spoke to replace action," she told Trump during a call. "I spoke to inspire it." "Let them talk," Trump replied. "History remembers the ones who take a stand." Emma wasn't backing down. Days later, Emma received a flood of emails from active duty soldiers. "Thank you for saying what we couldn't. I thought I was alone in feeling this way. You proved I'm not." Emma realized something important. For every critic, there were dozens of voices who had finally found the courage to speak. And that made everything worth it. Before leaving Washington, Emma met with Trump one last time. "You did something big, Captain," he told her, "bigger than even you realize." Emma shook her head. "I just told the truth," Trump smiled. "That's exactly why it mattered." Before heading home, Emma visited Arlington Cemetery. She found Jake's grave and knelt. "I spoke for you," she whispered, "and they listened." The wind rustled the grass. Somewhere deep inside, the weight she had carried for years felt just a little lighter. Months later, Emma stood before a new group of Navy recruits. "You may not know it yet, but one day you'll carry the weight of leadership," she told them. "And when you do, stand tall, speak up, because leadership isn't about power. It's about standing when it matters most." Jake's words echoed in her mind. "If you ever get a chance to speak for those who can't, do it." She smiled. Mission accomplished.